Good evening, everyone. My name is Andy Lyon. I'm the Public Information Officer working on the ICE fire, coming to you from the San Juan County Courthouse in Silverton for a virtual public meeting. Thank you very much for joining us. If you have questions for our speakers, you can email us at pio@sanjuancolorado.us, pio@sanjuancolorado.us. If you are on Zoom at the moment, you can just type a question into the chat box and we will get to as many of those as we possibly can. Good news from the fire today, we are now calling it 25% contained, a little bit of growth, 583 acres. We'll get an update from our incident commander in just a few minutes. We're going to start with the San Juan County Sheriff, Bruce Conrad. Then we're going to hear from your county emergency manager, Jim Donovan, and then we'll hear from Incident Commander Brad Petreska, and then we will take your questions. So thank you very much, and we will start with Sheriff Conrad.
Good evening. I am Bruce Conrad, San Juan County Sheriff. So it seems that 2020 still has some challenges to present our community, but it doesn't know we're Silvertonians and we're a resilient bunch. I'd like to start by offering our sincere gratitude to the Type 3 Incident Management Team that has shown to aid our event. They're a world-class team, and we're really lucky to have them here in our neighborhood and on our scene. I'd also like to thank Under Sheriff Lawrence for being first to respond to this fire and recognizing the severity and the potential dangerous situation this fire presented and getting all the bells and whistles rung appropriately very early on, changing the course of this fire. And thank you to our community for being so generous and welcoming to the incoming firefighters and folks coming to work the scene, and to our surrounding friends and neighbors for your words of outpouring support. And we really like hearing from you. Thank you. So why are we in the go phase of the ready, set? Why are we in the ready phase of the ready, set, go protocols? That's a question that's been buzzing around, and you have to understand that the original modeling of this fire provided for the potential for live flames to be on the edge of town, on the west side of town here, the Anvil Mountain ridgeline right above town at the 7-day mark from the fire start. That obviously raised some eyebrows and gave us pause and instigated these protocols where we're essentially asking you to be paying attention and tuned into the information being presented, to be able to think about your other community members, your neighbors that may be low mobility or have health issues that may need assistance, as well as to be prepared yourself to potentially have to evacuate the town of Silverton should we get to that phase. Now, the good news is the mitigation efforts have been very successful. The weather has been cooperating for the most part, and there's snow in the forecast. So we're feeling pretty positive about where things are going. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our incident manager, Jim Donovan, and after him, you're going to hear from some of our fire professionals here to give you some better details and further explain what to expect from this fire as we move on. Thank you.
Good evening, Jim Donovan, Emergency Manager for San Juan County. And just wanted to reiterate what our sheriff said, is that we really appreciate the incident management team coming in and doing such an excellent job. Really appreciate it. This is really one of the, this is the biggest, closest fire to Silverton in a very long time. So this has been, I know it's been a very disruptive last few days, but the trajectory for this whole incident is really de-escalating. So that's some very important news, good news that we want to get out to the community tonight. But with that, we still want to be very proactive. So the Board of County Commissioners did go ahead and do a disaster declaration this afternoon. So that is very important to basically establish to the state that this is a very big deal for our community, and we could still see consequences. The other thing I wanted to just talk about is you hear all these acronyms, and just do a little bit of clarification on who's doing what. So on Monday, the fire got reported This fire was completely on federal land, on U.S. Forest Service land, and it's their fire and they're in charge of it. So they called up what's called an incident management team, and it's a type 3 team that works in our region. They bring in all kinds of resources to fight the fire. Their job is to fight that fire and get it under control. Within the county, we have our emergency resources, the sheriff, emergency management, fire department, EMS, public health. We all operate out of our emergency operations center, and we manage the consequences. So we work in tandem with the incident management team and really work closely with them. But we just want to reiterate that they've got the lead on the fire, and we're really just there to make sure we can support them so they can do their job as effectively as possible. With that, I'm going to turn it over now to the incident commander, Brett.
Hi, everybody. My name is Brad Petruska. I'm the incident commander for the ICE fire. We'll go over what we've been up to the past few days and then our outlook for incident activity from here. So today we are up to 25% containment. That's all along the road at the bottom in South Mineral Creek. On the west flank of the fire in Division Zulu, which before I get into, there is a map. You're not going to be able to see it if I point to it, but if you go to INCIWeb, there's a better, higher resolution map if you want to follow along. So Division Zulu on the west flank of the fire, we went in there today and did what's called going direct. So that is where we put firefighters on the edge of the fire, constructing hand line, saw line, in order to contain further fire spread up into the Ice Lakes area. They were really successful with that. Fire didn't grow there. The smoke you were seeing from that area today is the result of what we call a burnout, where we take fire and we light from, in this case, rock down to a trail in order to create black and give us an advantage on where we put the fire line, as opposed to chasing it through all sorts of nooks and crannies like fires like to burn in. So today we got that burnout completed, supported it with bucket drops, dipping out of Ice Lake throughout the day. That was very successful, and we're feeling really confident about the western edge. Along the road along the bottom, South Mineral Creek, crews are continuing to prep, so cut back smaller trees and brush along that should the fire move further east. And what we want to do there is to keep pace with the upper reaches of the fire spread. So we don't want the fire pushing us too far out in front where we don't have what's called an anchor point down low. So an anchor point is simply an area that the fire has come to and is black and is a safe spot for firefighters to start engaging from. So we kind of bring it down to us on our terms like we've been doing throughout this fire. The growth today, about 80 acres, was a result of those burnouts, and the growth yesterday of roughly 150 acres was a result of burnouts from 2 nights ago. So most of the growth on this is from us bringing it down to the roads where we can engage it a lot more safely. On the east flank in Division Alpha, the fire's checked up along one of numerous avalanche chutes in that area. And it's really behaved quite nicely in there. It didn't move much. There's a few spots into some timber stringers a little further east towards 550, but they're really small. They're not showing any activity. We're well aware of them, and we have a number of aviation resources that we can get up there and cool them should they become active. Looking forward to tomorrow. We are in a pretty windy pattern tomorrow, so tomorrow's going to be a real testing day for our lines that are out there, as well as what the eastern side can do. So tomorrow, our H's are dropping to the mid-teens. Our winds are getting gusty in the afternoon with some gusts in the mid-30s. And so that'll really test all of our efforts so far. So the fire isn't done. We're calling it 25% contained. There is still potential for growth, but every day like the past two that we had kind of reduces how far it can go in the future until a pretty significant pattern shift coming up on, I think, Sunday evening. Sunday evening, odds are increasing for a good bit of moisture coming in, a lot of it in the form of snow. So you can look at whatever you like for amounts, but we are planning on some snow that's going to really stall this fire out, potentially for a long time. So we've got our eye on that. Quickly, what we have on the fire right now, we have 6 helicopters of varying size. We've got about 100 people, and we're being supported from local restaurants and other facilities within the town of Silverton. So we're really well set up. We appreciate the community, all the support we've been getting, and look forward to hearing your questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Brad. And we will start taking the questions here. We have a couple about evacuations. Let me say just in general that, and our light's flickering a little bit, so I apologize if that's reflected on your screens. We base evacuations on fire behavior and what's happening on the fire, what we think might happen. So there's no hard, fast rule. What we look at typically are, we call them management action points, and we draw a line on a map that seems to make sense. And if the fire gets to that line, do we need to think about changing the evacuation status? And we have those, Brad and the sheriff and the emergency manager. And we also have in the room, and I forgot to mention James, I'm sorry, James Simoneau, who is the district ranger here for the Columbine district of the San Juan National Forest. So if you have any questions for James, he's on hand to answer those. So we have a couple questions, Sheriff, one about the town of Ophir, which I know is not in your jurisdiction, but the other one is about, how close are we from a change in evacuation status if we are? I'll see if I can fix this.
Thank you, Andy. So one of the questions was in regards to whether folks should be looking at being prepared to evacuate within 48 hours at this point. So if you'd refer to the press release that came out yesterday at approximately 2 p.m., this describes in great detail the ready, set, go protocols that are in place at this point. So I'll break them down for you here briefly. The ready means be prepared to evacuate from the area, think more than 48 hours. And in the set protocol, should we go to that, it means that short notice evacuation is likely, think 24 to 48 hours. Whereas in the last phase, go, that means immediate evacuation from the area. We're talking about being prepped and ready out your door in an hour and ready to leave town if that gets to that point. I hope with all sincerity that we don't get to that point, but we're working hard to keep us from being there. The question about Ophir, I didn't hear what the question was.
Should folks in Ophir be prepared for evacuation?
I think Ophir residents should be paying attention and most likely to play on the safe side. Consider yourselves in this ready protocol as well, even though you're in San Miguel County rather than San Juan, but I think that that'd be a wise choice to err on the side of safety. I'm hoping that we're not going to be affecting that area so much with this fire, just the wind patterns and the things that are pointing toward the information we have right now. I think that that's not going to be an issue for you guys, but fire is a fickle beast and we'll see how it goes. So be prepared, be ready, and we'll keep you informed.
Thank you, Sheriff. Do we have other questions?
There is not, but remind people that put them in the chat. We're here to, oh wait, we are getting some more.
All right.
Any determination of cause yet?
The question is there any determination of cause? And no, the cause is still under investigation. We have a Forest Service law enforcement officer working on that. And if we can say something about that, we will, but there is no word on that.
Another question. How long do you believe the crews will be here? Multiple out-of-town visitors would like to help with food. If there's a need, even had someone volunteer to do pulled pork sandwiches. I don't want to have a lot of food ready for crews. We'll be gone in a few days. So basically asking, how do folks help?
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for the offer. And there are two answers to that. A, we are well taken care of. We have, as Brad said, we have local restaurants supplying us with food, and I can attest that it's plentiful and good. So we're good as far as that goes. But if you want to help, there's a facility right across the street from where I'm standing, and I believe it's called the Silverton San Juan Volunteer, I'm ducking down so I can look through the window, Volunteer Fire Department. And, those volunteers all over Colorado put in their own time, pay a lot out of their own pockets. I can tell you they don't have a large budget. If you have the cash, it doesn't matter how much, they could probably use it. There's also a place called the Wildland Firefighter Foundation, which supports injured and families of, unfortunately, people who die in the line of duty. And so if somebody gets hurt up here, the foundation will step in and help that person. And they WFF.org, or support your local fire department, because they're going to be here after the crews leave. Did I answer the question?
Yes, sir, and we're getting more.
Okay.
Are you trying to put out the fire or just control the burn?
Would you like to address that? I'll get our incident commander up here.
So yeah, we're trying to put out the fire. This is a completely 100% full suppression unwanted fire. Why we bring fire down 2 roads and better features. One, there's a lot of other fires going on in Colorado that are actively impacting structures, businesses, all sorts of stuff like that. So there's a pecking order of fires. We're not at the top, we're not at the bottom, we're somewhere in the middle. But because of that and the time of year, most firefighters aren't employed any longer. A lot of them have winter jobs, a lot of them go back to school, stuff like that. So while we have 100 people here, if we wanted to go in and keep this thing as small as possible, we need a whole lot more and a whole lot different complement of resources than what we have right now. So we're bringing it down, we're engaging it where we can. And as you get into these avalanche chutes, they're almost vertical. So if you slip and you fall, you're probably not going to fall to the bottom. You're probably going to land somewhere in the middle. We're probably going to have a helicopter try to get you out, as well as extra people. And it's probably going to take a while. So what we like to do is focus on like 1 hour to definitive care. And we can't really do that in a lot of this terrain. So that's why we have a combination of tactics going on with the overall intent to control the fire where we can, with the limited resources that we have in areas that it's going to be effective. So far, we've been really effective with that. And we're going to get tested tomorrow with wind. But the good news is we've delayed it for so long that as this front comes in, the humidities come up, the winds stay strong, but humidity, wind, temperature, all these are really important factors for fires to grow. So they're starting to fall less and less in alignment after tomorrow. Hopefully that answers that.
All right, we got more. So this is an evacuation question. Where is the arbitrary line, i.e. Highway 550 or Anvil Mountain right here behind town, that would switch us from a level 1 to level 2 set for evacuation?
I think it's best for you, sir.
All right. Incident commander will be now.
I'm back. So we worked with Bruce and Jim a lot on determining these. They are somewhat arbitrary, but they are informed by a lot of modeling. So if the fire gets over 550, that's what we're calling our management action point to initiate the set phase of evacuations for the town of Silverton. So it's based on how long it's going to take to get over 550, how long it takes from that side of Anvil to come around this side, and then how long it takes once it crests this ridge line on Anvil to really start coming into town. So those are the scenarios that we game out. So 550 is the set phase of that, and it kind of turns down Bear Creek, because even if it doesn't spot over 550, if it moves south of Bear Creek, well, it could come up from the south of town then. So we've got that line in place. And then we also have the Anvil ridge line, what we're calling it, just the main ridge line of Anvil. You can see it right from town. So if that were to happen, which we're feeling more confident that is less and less likely to occur, that's a great sentence. You'll feel that sense of urgency, I think, the same way as what we would in recommending that go phase to the sheriff, who is actually the person that changes these evacuation levels.
In regards to Ophir, will San Juan County or San Miguel County notify Ophir residents if the fire warrants evacuation? Ophir residents are very concerned that this fire might reach our neighborhood, and thank you.
Okay. Guess we should have gotten the San Miguel sheriff as well.
Absolutely. I have been on the phone with your Sheriff Bill Masters over there in San Miguel County. He's well aware of our situation, is paying extreme attention. You're not being forgotten, Ophir. We love you as our neighbors, and we're looking out for you as well. Should the fire turn in that direction, we'll certainly be making Bill and your sheriff well aware of any changes and anything that further threatens your neighborhood. But we don't expect that at this time. What we're looking at with this fire is non-threatening enough at this time. Should that change, we'll be providing that information immediately.
All right. How can we help our elderly neighbors? Specifically, if we start to trend towards an evacuation.
Well, I'll give you one suggestion, and that is, a lot of us live in Colorado because we enjoy the woods and we like living near the woods and in the woods. But part of that means we have to be responsible about how we live in the woods. And that means keeping your property cleaned up in terms of cutting down grass, cutting down the weeds, picking up trash that might blow under a deck. Those are the kind of small things that can protect your house if a fire does come, and that can help the firefighters protect your house if a fire comes. A small ember in a pile of trash under a deck can get going, start that deck on fire before anybody even notices that you got a fire. And so, offer to do cleanup around that neighbor's house, and start at the house, work out, do what you can, rake up pine needles, other debris. That's one way. Somebody else want to add in?
Yeah, I can add just a couple more things. Andy, great, thanks. Those are excellent suggestions. Another thing, if you do have neighbors, this is a great time to reach out to your neighbors and just make sure that everybody feels comfortable on what to do. If you have neighbors who have elderly neighbors, make sure that they are well informed. They may not be using all of these high-tech social media, any of this stuff. So it really makes a big difference just reaching out, touching base, see if they have everything they need, and also make sure that they get in contact with Becky Joyce at Public Health. And Becky has a running list of citizens in San Juan County that may need some extra assistance. And Becky Joyce and Carrie Metzler. They've already been going around town, making sure our elderly population and population that may need some extra time are well taken care of and communicated with. But it's a big job. So if you know of some that may not be in the loop, contact Becky and she'll get them set up. Thanks.
Still more?
Yeah.
All right.
This one is just a statement. It's not a question, but just a comment. A big thank you to all of those who are involved. It truly is appreciated that these crews put their lives on the line to keep our region safe.
Thank you for that.
Do you foresee this moving to a higher incident level?
Well, we do what's called a complexity analysis, or Brad will do a complexity analysis. And that's, what's involved? What are the values at risk? Is the town at risk? Are evacuations underway? How large is the fire? How many landowners are involved? Is the highway threatened? The more complex it gets, then you have a need for a higher organization. As I think I'm right in saying is we don't foresee that need at this moment, but I'll let Brad speak to that a little further.
So yeah, we don't, and it's not like you push a button and people come in, smoke jump in and take over your fire, right? There's a delay between if you were to order another team and them actually showing up. So either way, we'll have the fire for a little bit. To address that a little more, that set line I was talking about on 550, that's a trigger like, hey, we need to reassess our organizational needs and complexity on this thing. We've got about 3 of those out there, kind of boxing this fire in. And one go back I wanted to mention for the folks in Ophir, when I gave my update, I didn't talk about the north side because it's all rock. So it's not spreading north. The high elevation grasses are available to burn right now, but they do hit a solid wall of rock, really boxing it into South Mineral right now. So for that fire to ever get to Ophir, it has to first get all the way out of South Mineral, then it has to go north along 550, then it has to go west again, down the Ophir Pass draw. I'm not sure what that creek's called. And then it has to have really tremendous east winds, which are frighteningly rare around here for a super long time. So basically the amount of time it would take it to get to Ophir is inordinately long, and we can only model fire growth assuming that no one's out there trying to suppress it. Like the second we fire up a helicopter and go put out a hotspot or check it up, or the second we build line on a section of that, like we can't hardwire that into these models. They're just a free burning fire. So that's what a lot of our initial assessments were based on. That's what all of our management action points were built to address, but they don't calculate the effectiveness of suppression activity, which is what we're out there doing. So we're really changing a lot of these inputs that you can't model for. So we use those as best we can to give us an idea of where it could go. And then we change it a lot by doing our suppression. We build these MAPs with things like, should we get another team? So at the same time we would order a type 2 team, there's a whole giant resource list to address whatever that MAP is addressing. So if it's Highway 550, you've got power lines running right along there that supply Uray, Ophir, Telluride. We've been talking to San Miguel Power. We've been talking to all the folks that have interests in the assets that are along that area, as well as like CSP. Should we be closing that highway? So these are a whole bunch of what if scenarios that we've addressed a ton of in what we believe is the most likely or a possible outcome, even that's becoming less and less likely by the day. So a few more days of wind, a few more good burning periods should the fire want to move again, but our aviation resources and our ground resources are really in touch with where this thing has potential. And that's really what our actions are addressing right now is minimizing that spread in South Mineral. So I just wanted to point out the amount of rock that exists between this fire and Ophir makes it incredibly unlikely that Ophir will be impacted in the next 14 days plus.
Thanks, Brett. Which is not to say that a fire couldn't start anywhere. We're still super dry, still in stage 1 fire restrictions on San Juan, so be careful out there. We're going to take a couple more questions. If you have additional questions, I gave you that email address. It's pio@sanjuancolorado.us, or you can find us 2020 Ice Fire on Facebook. Leave a question on Facebook. I am a guy who's answering those questions. The phone number on InciWeb is this phone. It rings to this phone right here. So if you have questions, you can call us later. What's the next one, Deanne?
Is the town of Silverton's water supply coming from Bear Creek area in danger of being compromised by this fire?
Go ahead. Yep.
Thanks for that question. That has been that was a major concern that we had, and we relayed to the incident management team. At this point, the risk is a lot lower. Even if fire got into that drainage, it won't necessarily impact the water supply. What would really impact the water supply is if we had a big rain event that brought a lot of debris into the system. So at this point, much lower risk that we saw, but it's definitely considered one of the management action points and one of the main concerns that we had. Brad, did you want to add anything to that? Okay, thanks.
And this one may be for you, Jim.
Okay.
Final question. Where would we go if we had to evacuate?
Okay, excellent question. So we do have an evacuation plan. With the COVID concerns, it's really made it a lot more complicated. But with this situation, we would be evacuating to the south, to La Plata County. And we've already been in contact and in coordination with the American Red Cross. We would be doing what's called non-congregate sheltering. We would arrange, we already have hotels identified in Durango where people could stay using vouchers that the Red Cross would provide. We've also been in contact with our La Plata County counterparts to assist in any way of helping citizens as needed and getting them set up. One important thing to know is if we got to that phase, we also use a system called Rapid Tag, where we would actually give you a tag that you would be scanned, and we would basically know, we'd be able to kind of help monitor where, I wouldn't say monitor, but just we know that you are evacuated, and then when you come back, we know that you've come back from the evacuations. So that's important as we, if we got to that phase. Thanks.
All right, I want to thank everybody for watching, and I want to thank our speakers, the sheriff, the emergency manager, and Jim, the district ranger, James, the district ranger, for being here with us, and Deanne Gallegos, your county PIO, for facilitating, and Lisa at the town of Silverton for her help. If you have additional questions, email them, post them on Facebook. We'll get to them as we can. And let us know, or let your local folks know, if you found this valuable. We can do this again in a couple days. If we need to, we certainly will. We don't have any problem with that. Things are looking good, but it is a wildfire and things can change. So even if it doesn't, move any farther than it is right now, I would encourage you to use this opportunity to think about what you would do and what you would take if you had to evacuate. Do you know? Do you have a plan? Can you find the insurance papers for your house? Do you know what prescriptions you would need to fill if you were in Durango for a few days? Use this as an opportunity to think about those kind of things, not to get yourself worked up, but this may not be the last time. Fire season will be back. If it snows, even on Sunday, fire season could be back again before we know it. So thank you again very much.